call this meeting to order. Pledge allegiance.
Together with feedback.
Feedback.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Work session agenda, MO2 discussion. Marty Clark, update on Yacht Club Memorial Day events. Plans for ribbon cutting. I'm going to add to the agenda a bullet point right after that on junk car update. And then liaison reports. Adjourn for a closed session for discussion on Sandpiper Energy contract. Any additions or changes to the agenda? Bill?
Yes, sir. We need to add Mr. Frank Watkins.
Okay.
From the chairman of the Marine Advisories Committee to discuss bulkhead heights.
You want him before the liaison reports, Bill?
That's fine.
Okay.
This was supposed to be last meeting, and there was a scheduling conflict, so we're adding this
Okay.
meeting.
What committee was that, Bill?
Pardon me?
What committee was that?
Marine Advisories.
Anything else?
After the closed session, we'll also be doing a contract issue discussion.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We have a closed meeting for Sandpiper discussion, and what was the
A
second?
contract issue.
Of what contract?
Personnel.
Supposed to be. Four.
Okay. Sharon, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you everybody for coming. We have a full house and I'm glad you're here. Just so you know, this is an informal work session and some of you have been here and some of you haven't before. So we don't take any votes at this meeting, and here's how our agenda is done. We go through the agenda, the board will discuss what they need to, and then I will open it to the floor afterwards, and you're respectfully allowed to speak to the topic of what we're discussing, and everyone will have an opportunity to say something if you choose to. Okay, any questions on how we go about the procedure? But you all will have a chance to talk about your issues. Okay? First thing, we have Marty with the MO2 discussion, please.
It's an easy one. MO2 is coming up for review by Bylaws and Resolution Committee anyhow. But there's a mistake in the existing one. And anybody that think there's a mistake needs to go back and look at the videotapes, talk to the members of the board at the time. There was specifically taken out of open to public amenities, the boat ramps. It was specifically addressed and taken out. It missed the cut. It was an accident. We have that from the Bylaws Commission, from people that were committee, and from people that were there. So when this, I just want to bring that out because there's people going bananas over the fact that we've supposedly opened our boat ramps to the public, and we have not. I mean, they're posted private property. They are private property. And we've never, my knowledge, other than a mistake, opened them to the public.
Could Marty, for my clarification, so I can go back, what meeting was that dated? Because I know this is signed and dated, as it is.
Yes,
I got
and this
it.
is, and this
So what
is
meeting
wrong.
was this?
The special meeting to discuss the MO2, which was held 8/10/2011. If you watch the videotape, you can start at 48-minute mark and avoid all the other boring stuff.
48.
What minute mark?
48 minutes.
48 minutes.
Or you can ask a director that was there.
Who was that?
Well, Tom Terry was there. Boat ramps were excluded.
Is that right, Tom?
Yep. Well, the boat ramps are not, if you look at MO2 as it's written under paragraph 3, amenities defined, boat ramps are not on that list. But when you go to the next page, under section 5, boat ramps got listed in a list going down the page. And that just didn't get removed from the list.
Jim Trummel will eventually, I'm sure. I mean, it was a mistake. And they're posted private property, they ought to be.
One of them. One of them.
Well, the other one used to be chain link fenced up, and you had to get a key from the dock.
Yeah,
Now,
but it's
that's
not.
changed, but it's still private property.
Well, okay, but it's not posted.
It's not posted, it should be. Of course, it's posted no parking for trailers, and you gotta climb on the trailers to take a picture of the no parking stuff.
Yeah.
That was it for M02. But when it comes up again, I do want to mention, and I've already mentioned it, so of course this will be a vote, but somehow or another under classification use of amenities, the authority in MO2 is our declaration of restrictions would say, right here, state the purpose of the association to further promote community welfare of the property owners of the subdivision. That's what our declaration of restrictions say. Huh? Yeah, but go down to 5A.
It's there.
These amenities that serve the association membership and the general public. When were we elected to serve the general public? I don't think the word general public appears in our DRs. And it doesn't appear in our charter. That's not our job.
Wasn't part of that discussion that the county had listed that boat ramp as?
That goes back 10 years ago. That was also a mistake. But
Yeah.
today, you can go to the DNR little pamphlet from about 4 years ago, and we're still listed on it.
Yeah.
Maryland
As
Coastal
long as we
Bays.
keep letting it happen,
Coastal
it's
Bays,
going to keep happening.
Coastal Bays listed as a public boat
Yeah, I
ramp.
remember that part of the conversation.
They will not remove it from their literature.
Yeah, they will.
They will?
They will if we start towing people to park their trailers there, which we have the absolute right to do, if we post the correct signage.
You gonna go,
Okay.
You
you
can-
gonna go around?
Yeah, I'm good. All right, is there,
I went to, beg pardon?
I was
Are
gonna
we
start, I'm
moving
gonna,
to another issue?
no, I was gonna start going around the table. I mean, Marty, are you done making
I'm
your
done.
presentation? Okay, I just want to be sure you were done with your presentation. Tom, if you'd like to
Well,
start?
Jack raised his
Well,
hand.
no,
Or Jack, okay.
I went to the commissioners' meeting, and this was in the minutes. Would you like me to read what they expressed in their minutes about allocating monies to the association?
Okay.
If it does anybody any good. The commissioners reviewed the requested grants for Ocean Pines Association. The commissioners consulted with county attorney Sonny Bloxham with regard to providing county grants to OPA for tourism-related activities, namely providing a grant of $6,000 to defray the cost of fireworks for the annual 4th of July celebration, and a $10,000 conditional grant to be used for recreational facilities, programs open to the public. Just says facilities, programs open to the public. That's in the minutes. Mr. Bloxham advised that the county could only allocate additional funds for activities related to public uses, only for public uses. Upon a motion by Commissioner Bunting, the commissioners voted unanimously to increase the grant funding for police aid by $16,000 with the caveat that OPA decrease their funding to police aid by the same amount and direct the funds for said uses and provided that the recreational facility programs are open to the public. So it's a quid pro quo. So they are increasing police aid because that's obviously a public function. And, we can use $16,000 reallocated somewhere else.
Sure. Okay.
I hear you, but I didn't hear boat ramps mentioned.
No,
Did-
what?
yeah, but
no,
you know what?
Grant wasn't mentioned.
Yeah, I know, but
The boat ramp is
I've
over
had
there.
the exact same thought, but if you listen to it, it says recreational facilities.
What? Well,
Not
it
in the last part that he read.
could be tennis courts that are open
And
to the
so-
public, could be it.
I don't know that we have tennis courts open to
Don't
the
we
public.
have like the ones?
Privately
No,
owned,
I know
for
that.
membership
But
use.
aren't there some public tennis courts over at Maitland Creek?
MO2 might say that, but we'll get to that.
The pay courts are open to the public.
To anybody that wants to drive in
That's
from Snow Hill, that's only because we're not monitoring.
No, the pay courts are open to the public. You can
Oh,
buy
oh,
a
oh,
membership.
oh,
Just
yeah,
like
you
you can
could.
buy a member of
Correct.
pay pass at the
course you
beach
can.
club.
Their wording doesn't say it has to be free.
Okay.
Just has to be open to the public. Okay.
Right.
Okay, Tom, did you have anything you want to
Yeah,
add to
just
it?
my recollection of the meeting was exactly that of Marty's and everybody else that was there, and the videotape of the meeting, is that the ramps were not supposed to be put on the list as open. And as we review MO2, I think it's going to be imperative that we ask the general manager to give us what the costs are going to be associated with actually implementing the closing of them and what it's going to entail to do that. What the costs might be and various options that could be used.
I didn't say close.
Yeah. Well, if they're not open to the public, then they're not open.
That's not necessarily
But can-
true.
can
My
I-
yard's not open to the public, but I don't shoot everybody that runs in
didn't
the
say you-
yard.
But can I ask a question related to that, though? Okay, so we just had this conversation about the tennis courts, and if you buy a membership, you can play tennis on the courts, correct?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah.
Or
Now,
golf.
do you have to be an Ocean Pines resident to buy that membership?
No.
So,
No.
is there a membership to be able to use the boat ramp?
No.
No, there isn't.
Now there isn't.
There is
Well,
not
What
a
are you
membership.
suggesting?
When you
Well,
make-
no,
Excuse
I'm-
us, Joe, let us finish
No,
your table.
no, I'm
You'll be get a
saying-
chance. Joe, you will have an opportunity, I promise you.
No, I'm saying, I'm saying the argument is that they're open to the public because the public can buy memberships. The county's saying that they're open to the public. Well, in order for the boat ramps to be considered open to the public by buying some sort of, do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm
No,
saying?
Sharon will explain it
So
to you.
what, Joe, that is inappropriate. Okay, it is inappropriate.
Tom, back-
Do you see?
Terry, what I'm hearing you say is there a possibility to have a membership for the use of the boat slips? Is that what you're saying? Either
Kind of.
by residents and
No,
non-residents?
What I'm saying is we're getting around the argument of the tennis and those kinds of things being open to the public because people can buy a membership to them.
Correct.
The county is saying,
We're good.
The
In all
boat
due,
ramp is-
in all due respect, Terry, I understand what you're saying. The issue that I'm simply trying to put on the table is, it's one thing to say that boat ramps shouldn't have been on here as being an open amenity. There's another thing that comes along with that says, how closed are they? You know, do we in fact have to create a methodology of policing this thing, monitoring it? What's the cost of doing that? All I'm saying is, at the meeting, you look at the videotape, it clearly said that the ramps were not supposed to be on there, and like the fishing pond at the South Gate. You don't have to buy a wristband to go to the White Horse Park concerts either. There are amenities and programs that go on in our community that people can attend, and they don't have to show their membership card in order to show up. So if you take ramps off of here, which I agree in the meeting, they were supposed to be off of there, wholeheartedly agree, there's a whole implementation side of this that says, in my phraseology, just how close are they? Which we have to solve later.
Let the rewrite of MO2
Take care of that.
By the way, it was Bob who actually pulled the boat ramp out just because of much of what you're saying. It was,
Right.
Now that I think about it, it was Bob who
Right.
said, whoa.
And that's all I
well, we
want to
had
put
a
on
lot
the.
of complaints from members who couldn't use the boat ramp because it was always,
How about the members that live across from it?
well, yeah, that too, but I remember us having a lot of complaints from members not being able to use it because people would park there for long periods of time and.
Again,
Is that correct? I recall that.
Mm-hmm.
All I'm saying is, I agree that this
So,
needs to be adjusted, but in adjusting it, we're going to need to have, what is the implementation here, and what's the cost, and what are we looking at? Which has to be a proposal from administration that says, how do we do this?
So maybe we should need to send this back to the committee, is that what you're suggesting?
They're already doing it
They
anyway.
already are doing
Every
it.
2 years.
Okay, do you have any idea when they would be presenting the
According to Jim, it
revised?
would have happened at the last meeting, except their meeting had a problem and they didn't meet.
Okay, so they're currently
You would
working
know
on
that.
this.
There was no Okay, there you
There
go.
was no quorum, okay. Jeff, do you have anything you'd like to ask or add to the discussion?
By the way, I did
Jack?
check with you before I did this, right?
Yes, you do.
Jack, anything you'd
I
like to
just
ask?
want to get that in the record.
Okay, Bill?
No, I just want to reiterate, it doesn't say anything about boat ramps. I don't know how this whole thing started, it doesn't say anything about boat ramps.
The
About the
county does.
additional money.
The county, no, the county.
This,
The county,
Does not say,
yeah.
the minutes does not say anything about boat ramps. And I wish that hadn't been reported that it did.
Terry, anything else you'd like to add to it?
Well, you just have to be careful, because when they say recreational facilities, they don't define it either way.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
I gotta say something. For the amount of money we get from the county for recreation, I'm not gonna lose 1 minute's sleep over putting up a gate that says, go away.
Well, neither
Members only.
am I. But I'm just saying, you can't assume what you're interpreting, because they could have assumed something else, and it's not cut and dry.
Private property, no trespassing is cut and dry.
Okay, so from what I am understanding from this, around the table, MO2 is at the bylaws committee right now. They're reviewing it and will be presenting something to us perhaps the next meeting or certainly by the meeting after that. Am I correct, Marty?
I hope so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the-
Would you say, are you the liaison? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I thought you were Marty.
No,
Okay,
no,
okay.
he was.
I
He
was.
was.
I was for moments. A fleeting
Well, there was a
moment
good
of
reason
time.
they probably, okay.
27.
Okay. Okay, so Jeff, is that reasonable within the next 2 meetings? We should have something from them?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
So maybe we
Okay.
can get a quorum.
Now we will start in the room, and this is open. If you have a question or comment, just raise your hand, and it's, would you just state your name and your property address, please?
Yeah, Dan Pelletier, One Carriage Lane, and I'm here on behalf of neighbors. Roy Irwin is at 4 Carriage Lane, Gene Ringsdorf is at 2 Carriage Lane, and there's Ron Bev Rundgren, who couldn't be here, but he's right next door also. I have here a bunch of notes that were emailed to you from Roy, and I'll be just excerpting some of them for you if you don't mind. And I'll start with the bottom line, which is, I believe now is the time to put in a gated entrance or have a guard on duty. Now, let me get all the information that brings us up to that bottom line. First of all of us, the 4 of us that I mentioned, have been there nearly 15 years as permanent residents. So if anybody knows what's going on at the ramp, it's us. In the beginning, Roy starts out. Let me put my glasses on, please. I applaud the board for taking action for the much-needed repairs on the boat ramp. And then it goes on a little bit more, and then it says, talking about outside abuse. Many of the nearby boat dealerships at our ramps take clients out for test runs. There are also commercial crabbing boats that use the docking facility. There are also other work boats that use the docking facility. Again, on outside of use, I notice especially during the spring launch, many of the boats are being launched with Delaware tags, go down the canal and make a left. If you use, those of you who don't know it, that's away from Ocean Pines. So since this is the first person north, I assume that these are no residents, not residents also. I personally know, this is Roy, I personally know several people I work with or acquaintances that use the boat ramp on a regular basis. My employment is throughout the Eastern Shore, and these are not residents of Ocean Pines. Then he goes on and he says a little more, and he talks about inappropriate use of the facility. I also have issues on how the boat ramp is used. Many people fish, crab, swim, sunbathe on the docks. There is one sign on one of the docks stating it's not allowed, so they use the other docks. Some of them entirely ignore the sign. I have seen large groups of people show up with one jet ski and taking turns all day long using the jet ski while waiting their turn, hanging out on the docks, and doing the things that I mentioned before. And that's one of my pet peeves, because we get to see all jet skis, and jet skis are fine, and many of them are very, they go by the rules, okay? They take their time to go down. A lot of them are not. Jet ski is a very, very noisy craft. And to have one jet ski there that goes in and out, and in and out, continuously, I know maybe it takes an hour to have lunch sitting on the dock, parked I don't know where. then it goes in and out, in and out. So there are a number of those that do that. And that, you're not increasing the congestion there by one vote. You can-
What's the speed limit in that area?
6 knots.
No way.
It basically,
And
it
they're not
says,
doing 6 knots, I take it.
some are, some aren't.
Oh, okay. No, but I mean,
No.
the cases that you're talking about where they're going back and forth, they're
Again,
not
some
doing
are,
6
I
knots.
didn't say they're all, they don't all break the rules. All I'm saying is, what I'm saying is it's congested. What we want is less use of the ramp so that people can use it, not more use of the ramps. And this jet ski, whatever you call it, is going to increase the usage of it.
I was visiting there the other night on the back bulkhead in my boat when one of those jet skiers waved to you, as I remember.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I mean, there are
It was
some.
what we call a one-finger wave. Just ask them to slow down.
Yeah, well, one is, I'm reading to Roy's. If you talk to Gene and I, we have a whole bunch of other things going on here. One of them was, there was someone came the other day, and I'm pretty sure it's commercial. I went over and looked at the tags. They were commercial New Jersey tags, and it was a brand new boat. And they revved up the engine for whatever reason, I don't know. But that's pretty annoying any time of day, especially when you're sleeping. Revved up the engine. Roy got upset, I think. Was it you? Somebody said
Was
something.
it the guy I chased?
Yeah.
I
Anyway,
do that quite regularly.
yeah.
You must be very fast.
Well, yeah, he was out there revving for a little while.
I mean, do fights break out?
Yes.
Oh,
They
yeah.
do?
That's
So people physically get hurt?
It's more verbal,
Oh, okay.
but I think, Dan, did you call the police
I
last
called
year threatening?
2 years ago, I was out working on my pontoon boat, and I was painting. I had paint all over my hands, so I couldn't really get off the boat. But I heard this argument go on for about 15 minutes. Then one of the guys said, "I'm going to kill you."
Oh,
And at that point, I went inside and called the OP police. I don't know if he's serious or not. When somebody makes a threat like that, somebody ought to do something about it. Anyway, there's lots of those things, many, many more of those. But we're on inappropriate use, okay? And he says that the docks have become a popular place for teenagers. They go there, smoke, drink, throw rocks, and everything seem to have zeroed in on my yard, et cetera, et cetera. And with here's the essence of it, what I was trying to say before. With the new ramps and an additional pier, a docking pier that's proposed, this area is just going to become more attractive for parties of the type we were just talking about. And we hope that the Ocean Pines Board will take action to alleviate this, okay? And this also includes parking, because they're really, when you get boats that are legitimately there, they take up the parking lot pretty much.
Sure.
So every time you increase the facility and the capability, it gets really sometimes very heated. Okay, now we get back to the bottom line, which is that I believe, Roy and us, that now is the time to put a gated entrance or have a guard on duty. I think that's it. Are you okay with that?
Dan, may I ask, since you're the spokesman for your group, and certainly the other gentleman may chime in here, what is your recommendation? I mean, are you saying a gate would be the best with like a pass swipe card? Are you saying a chain fence with the key that they get from the police department and open and take it back? I mean, what do you think? A sticker on the back that says Ocean Pines Boat Ramp?
No, you wouldn't be able to
I mean,
enforce it.
what is your group
No,
think would be
I
best?
don't know of two that I think would be effective. One of them is as we do over in Ocean City. You just post a guard, not a guard, post a person there with a checkboard and checks the cars as they come in. Either they have to get a registration, or they have to at least tell them, we're from a particular house in Ocean Pines, at least some information that says they're from there. So anyway, a person there that somehow checks it physically. And that could be, this is mostly on the weekends, almost entirely.
I was going to
weekends.
ask you, are you just thinking 7 days a week?
No.
12 hours a day, or what are you
No,
thinking?
you want 2 shifts a day for 2 days.
So just Saturday and Sunday?
Or maybe even 3.
Bob, does anybody, do the police patrol back there?
Police do patrol back.
I mean, that's part of their, group.
Police do patrol back there.
They actually
But it's not-
open and close the gate
They
now.
do.
Yeah.
There is a gate, but it's just.
Dan, are you also suggesting that Ocean Pines residents still are able to use it with no charge, or that there should be a membership to the boat ramp? as your committee. I'm just your group. I'm
Yeah,
just
no,
asking
I
your
understand.
opinions. I'm brainstorming here.
Yeah, no, and let me indirectly answer, and then I'll answer directly.
Okay.
Indirectly, right now, there is no control of that area. There is a sign is nice, there is no control of the area. Our recommendation is get control of the area. Now, how you do it, should they have memberships, should the people pay? They don't have to pay. What I would suggest would be that you make people register, just as you do in the beginning of the year for anything else. For golf, we register for golf, we register for all kinds of things. You put it on the swipe card. You use a swipe card system, or have an individual there with a handheld swipe. I mean, they're available.
Like the beach club.
Yeah, and then at that point, that takes care of the control. Now, whether or not you charge individuals, I don't particularly care. You got to pay for it somehow. Maybe, I mean, if you're going to allow commercial in there, there are commercial in there. But if you really whack them, charge them a lot to use the facility, and then you charge outsiders a modest or even more than modest amount, that should cover expenses. But if it doesn't, I guess you can charge just like we pay for golf, we can pay for this too. But I would not recommend that.
So you're basically saying that the neighborhood doesn't have a problem with being a public ramp. Is that what you're saying?
We have a problem with it being out of control. That was our issue.
Well, how's swipe card and selling membership to an individual who may not necessarily live in Ocean Pines, isn't that making it you're paying for it, but they're not in Ocean Pines, so it's
Yeah, that's-
quasi-public? Is that where you're coming from?
It's open to the public. We're not recommending that. I was trying to answer the question.
No, I know. I'm trying to understand what's
What's
doable.
digress?
Yeah, what's doable, what's agreeable, and and how people are. I've gotten calls on this,
Yeah.
and they want a private boat ramp. That's what they're telling me.
I know.
They mention the same stories about the left turn going up to Delaware.
Yeah.
Same stories. I've heard these. So, we've got to come to a decision. So we're looking for guidance from the community to tell us, what the consensus is.
Well, right now, it's not a private boat ramp, it's a public boat ramp.
Yeah.
It's a private boat ramp being trespassed on.
Yes.
The sign is only keeping the honest people honest, that's all it's doing.
But once you get control of it, you can do what you want. I mean, once you get the access control and you decide that, this really needs to be private, then all of a sudden you say nobody's allowed.
Can I ask
So you
another?
don't have to make that decision. You do have to get it under control.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you.
go ahead.
Dan, not having a boat, I'm just curious why there is an objection to people going down there to crab or sunbathe. What negative effect is there?
I didn't read a book. I'll try to paraphrase. You want to say it?
Well, I have no problems with people sunbathing, but they're congregating on the docks. They're crabbing off the docks. They're interfering with people launching and retrieving boats. The summer camp a couple years ago, I don't know, last year, was actually taking a lot of children over there and chicken necking off
Sure,
there.
so they learn to crab, yeah.
Okay,
It's not-
boats were going in and out. All you need is one prop to grab that rope. That's going to yank their hand off.
It's not safe, Sharon.
Well,
It's not
I'm
allowed
just
anyway.
asking, I know there's a sign, but I'm asking why not? What's the negative? It's an amenity, that's a park that goes back there, people walk right back there, I understand that, so what is the negative? If the negative is it's safety for them having lines, I can understand
Same
that.
reason you
But
can't let people
sunbathing-
sunbathe on the greens.
Why would sunbathing not be?
Well, it's a boat ramp. I mean, I think it's a boat ramp. That's what it's supposed to be used for, not for any
Yesterday,
other.
there were 2 strollers out there
Yeah,
while the family was fishing off the dock. Boats are coming in and out.
It's a safety
Gene,
issue.
go
It's a
ahead.
safety
Safety
issue.
issue.
We're not saying they can't sunbathe on the parking lot or the grass, but when they're out there on the ramps doing these things, it's a safety issue for people.
Are you talking about the actual ramp that slopes into the water or the dock?
piers.
The
piers.
piers, okay.
Using the piers for beach chairs and sunbathing and fishing and crabbing and swimming and diving. And when the sign is clearly there, don't do it, because you got motorized vehicles coming in and out. And if somebody gets injured, then we're going to have a big old lawsuit on our hands.
Okay.
So it's a safety issue. If we're talking about Like I'm myself, it's the piers.
Go ahead.
You know, mention, just so everybody would know, I just did simple math. The investment to us, if we monitor them 3 days a week, 10 hours or 12 hours a day, at $10 an hour plus a lawn chair and a radio, it's a total investment of $3,600.
For what period of time? 3 days?
That's 3 days a week for 10 weeks.
For the summer.
For the summer.
So it's like $4,000 for the summer.
I think we need to, you know.
There's no other initial investment other than the swipe
And
card.
once you start monitoring it, the guy pulling boats up from Delaware, when he pulls up to that line,
He's
and
gonna
we
stop.
go out of here,
It'll stop.
he's going to stop driving all the way up here and use a boat ramp.
So the logical thing is not a gate going down with the swipe card, but a real person there.
That's the easiest way to start. No, we don't say that, but it's the easiest way to start.
If I can step back in here a second. Part of what we talked about around this table was, you know, getting the input and letting the general manager come up with what the solution is for some of this. Right now, the team is implementing MO2 as written. So they're doing what they were told to do by this document, which says it's open. If we're going to close it, then what's the implication of closing it? Yeah, safety issues are safety issues. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been a teenage guard at a place like this. You try stopping 13 teenagers. He better have a fast budget to get a hold of the police department if he needs it.
In those situations, that's when you call right off
Yeah,
the block.
exactly. I'm not arguing with you a bit. I'm just trying to say that, you know, an off-the-cuff number of 3,600, it may be twice that much, it may be less. You got all kinds of insurance issues here. You know, swim at your own risk, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more to it. If you sell memberships, there's all kinds of things that come in, that can come in. At the same time, that doesn't mean we don't need to get control of this, because I think,
Well, and it doesn't
Personally,
mean
we
it
do.
needs a long time
no,
to fix it.
right.
I mean, I think there's some choices to be made, there are some things to understand, okay? Ought to be able to do that fairly quickly and figure out one of the several acceptable solutions to this.
Short term and then a long term.
Well, you can do a short term and then a long term, sure.
Thank you.
That'll get you something even faster, which is actually probably a good idea.
That's fine, but how do you do that? How do you implement that? How do you put that into an action plan? How do you come up with suggestions? By sitting around and talking about it? How do we do that?
It's well, the normal way.
That would be the guy in the blue shirt.
Jane, you have a comment?
How do you
Yes.
propose we do that?
You could volunteer to go out and watch the ramp. Get rid of the 50-foot perpendicular pier, so nobody's just hanging out there anyway. Use that money to put a gate up. You got $250,000 you're putting this new ramp in and these new piers in, and you're putting a 50-foot perpendicular pier on the outside so people can wait around while they're getting in their boats. But you don't need that because it's just a boat ramp. You drop your boat. I've been doing it since I was 10 years old. You drop your boat, you park your truck, and you go. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to hang out there.
Let me just add on to that. The three of us are also going to go to the Worcester County meeting tomorrow and strongly object to that perpendicular pier. I mean, that's a pier. This is not a boat ramp, it's a pier. So it's just asking for people to come
But
and
wasn't
bring
that
more
for
cars.
safety for them to get their boats in?
No,
Wasn't
they've
that the
been
purpose
going
of
for
it?
35 years without that pier. I don't want to
Excuse, this is
Bob,
a permit that
excuse-
OPA has this pier in?
Yeah, I got, can I see that back? No, I'm sorry, this is the,
Oh, no, that's a paper. Excuse me.
They want a perpendicular pier going out to the lagoon.
here, that looks, you can see this a little better here.
Okay, now back to Jack's
That's encouraging stuff.
the way that you handle this is the way you handle most problems around here. You find people with some knowledge, including the guys and gals who have to implement this stuff, because, you know, if you tell them to do something that's impossible, then it just isn't gonna get done. You sit down, talk about it, figure out plans.
Well, how about referring it to the Marine Advisory
that.
Committee?
As a part of
Since
that,
that's what they do.
absolutely.
I'm
Excuse
sorry,
me,
Bob.
Jack, just wait a minute. I think Bob wants to say something.
Sorry, Bob, you
So,
were going to say
go ahead.
something?
No, I can probably add some value to this.
Okay.
Okay, this has been discussed multiple times, and I can probably get some help from Mr. Watkins over there as well. We've discussed this. First, the design of the, it's easy to say that extra ramp or that extra dock is a bad decision. It was actually brought from the committee that was the design they thought would work best, and part of it's launching kayaks and other watercraft. Or once the boat gets launched, people often have stuff they're taking on and off. They could move it up out of the way so more people could launch the boat. So there was some rationale behind the design. It wasn't just, the intention wasn't for a crabbing pier or sunbathing.
No.
When they discussed it, that was, and it seemed reasonable.
But that's exactly
That-
what we're objecting to, Bob. The additional facility. They're now putting a pier where there was no pier. They're now allowing more boats there that weren't there before. It's congested enough. We don't need more.
Dan,
Okay.
excuse me, let Bob
I'm
finish,
sorry.
please.
So-
Okay,
I'm
you'll
sorry.
have an opportunity. Okay, go ahead.
So the advisory committee put it together, and Frank, jump in if you want on this, because you guys were part
I'll
of
let
this.
you finish,
Okay.
then I
Thank
have
you.
something to say about it.
So we do,
Chair of
so
the
it
committee.
went through the committee to get where we are. There is a meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the Worcester County Library. It's been publicized, it's out there, to discuss this even further. That's the meeting that they're referring to. We are going to do repairs. This all started, and the board should remember this, we talked about repairing it, the sudden drop off. So all this has been discussed. It's not brand new. It's not something that should surprise anybody. Additionally, the monitoring of the ramp has occurred at least on 2 occasions. We did one last year where we actually had someone sit out there during busy times and track the usage of the ramp. Despite what was said here today, the report we received, and it was given to the board, in addition, and it matched the report that the Marine Advisory Committee had done several years prior, the majority of the use was from OPA residents or their guests. Now, part of the change this year was the Bishopville change in the Bishopville ramp there, which I do believe is adding congestion to our ramp because there's no longer the one up there. So this is one that again, it's going to get the use now. So all those things are what's occurring. That extra pier is so people launching the other watercraft, and once they launch, pull their boat around out of the way to help clear up some of the congestion, not create it, to get movement there. That was the whole reason. Frank, was there, did I misinterpret or misstate anything we discussed?
As a chair, we've discussed on the MAC committee, we discussed this at length last year prior to Bill really being on the committee. The problem is people get there lining up to get into the ramp, and then that's where you get the arguments, because somebody sits there and tries to unload their boat at the ramp. The next boat can't get in, and people get very fed up with that. So by putting a short pier off to the side, in front of the canal, if you will, the cove, rather, excuse me, that provides the ability to clear the ramp quickly so that a second or a third boat can then launch their boat. Now, as far as, we also looked at the time, because I think, excuse me, Marty, I'm going to throw your name under the bus, but last year you were talking about some type of fee-based entry into that area to also address the congestion area with the parking. Part of the recommendation we made was between Ocamp Road, I believe it is, and the current parking area, where there is a picket fence to the left and right, that those would be pushed back to provide car-only parking, and then the current area down where the larger parking slots would be cars with trailer only. So an issue about people parking their cars, and you lose your capability of parking a boat with a trailer, etc., a car with a trailer, when you're trying to launch, would be mitigated by adding parking further up towards the street on both sides. We addressed also the issue of what do we do if somebody wants, or if the community wants, to go with a some type of entrance or a tag or a sticker or whatever you're going to do. There are so many people with guests in the community on the weekends, all over the East Coast, even California we have on occasion, where they're pulling boats into the community on a Friday night. So now you got somebody coming in here Friday night and you're expecting them to get some type of ticket. If you put some type of gate in place, that gate will be gone in a week. Probably. Somebody's going to pull it down. Now, because they have no way, since the office here closes 5 o'clock, people coming in on weekends have no way of getting this valid pass, if you will, to provide an entry into the community, which they're legitimately here. They're guests or even family members in some cases that own property here from out of the state. So you're going to see Delaware.
you're gonna see New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all over the East Coast. Pardon?
I was going to say, sir, we're aware of that. We live across. We
I
see it every
understand
day.
that, I understand that.
Gene, I know your hand's up.
But based
You're
upon the
next.
study that was done last year, and I wasn't on the MAC committee 4 or 5 years ago when they did a study before, there was a small percentage. I think over the weekend there was like 3 or 4 people out of 100 that entered into over several weekends. There wasn't just a single weekend. And one of them, I think, was 4th of July or
Yeah,
something.
it was less than 5% were not either related to Ocean Pines in one way or the other. It was just someone
Now,
lost.
I have no problem if they want to hire somebody.
Less than
To your
5%.
point, the MAC committee would have no problem with doing that. The only question about that we would have a concern as a MAC committee, and all I'm only saying is because we've discussed it, is what do you do for the people legitimately coming here over the weekends and cannot prove their valid access to the ramp because they got here late Friday night or something of that nature?
Put the boat in on Saturday morning.
Pardon?
Put your boat in on Saturday morning. If you get here late Friday night.
fishing early in the morning.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you own a piece of property in the Pines, for instance, and you're a Pines owner, you have a card. I mean, everybody has one, right? I mean, you can get a card with a swipe on it. If you have a swipe there, you can swipe it in the middle
Well,
of the night.
to the point raised by, excuse me if I don't remember your name. So a very, very easy point would be there then. You provide the address, and you call the house. Maybe you may or may not get anyone at the house, but you provide a phone number, to your point. They come in Saturday morning or even Friday night, doesn't matter. And they launch, and if there's some type of person the board wants to pay for it, that's up to them. But you could have them call the address and validate it. To bring up a second point, I talked to the police chief this year when we had the crabber there that one time. I specifically went to the police chief and I said, what's going on here? The police chief said the signage is not such that he can accurately enforce it because that crabber only has to say, my friend Bill said I can use it. So when you have something fairly general which says, and guest, what is a guest? Define a guest to the point here, to the gentleman we're probably worried about. When you have a signage that says no trespassing except for residents and guests, that little guest word throws Pandora's box wide open because all he has to do is know his brother or cousin or friend, anyone. Doesn't matter where they live. They could live up in Delaware, right up the canal, right up St. Martin's River or whatever it happens to be, and you've just thrown the door wide
A
open.
guest can be somebody who's be a guest of somebody who doesn't even live in Ocean Pines.
Absolutely. You got guests coming in Ocean Pines. No. I'm saying a resident of Ocean Pines, a property owner of Ocean Pines, owns property. Somebody from Delaware calls his friend Bill, who owns property in Ocean Pines, and says he could be a commercial entity. Doesn't matter. And says, can I use that as your guest? You should go right ahead. So automatically, you've opened Pandora's box to their problem.
Gene? Okay, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions, as the MAP committee, I'll answer the questions we've discussed.
Okay. I just have a couple comments to make. First of all, my wife and I went over to one of the survey takers last summer who was out there doing a survey. The person there, the one we interviewed, said they're asking the people when they pull up, are you a member or live in Ocean Pines? The person would say yes. I said, do you have any way of verifying what they're saying? They said no. So they were just saying yes, no verification. And we looked at what they were doing for about a half an hour or so. In my opinion, if our experience there was true for the whole survey, I wouldn't put a nickel into making policy based on that survey, because there was no way of verifying the answers that were being given, at least to this person. That's number one. Number two, I find it very incomprehensible that for the 12 years, I skipped 1 year, Tom, last year, at the annual meeting, I've been saying that this is an amenity, single-use amenity, special purpose amenity, used primarily by adults, operating motorized vehicles, and every single board member is saying, oh, we don't want to charge our voters a fee to use it. But we require the dog people to put up half the cost of the dog park. we required our skateboarders to raise half the capital cost, I believe, of the skate park. We required golfers to pay to play golf. We require tennis people to, even though they're paying the capital and maintenance costs in their assessment, they're paying a membership fee. We do it for every special purpose amenity other than the trails and the public parks, where somehow the users are contributing either capital costs and or they're contributing membership fees. But we keep saying the boaters are exempt, and we keep having a lot of reasons why it can't be done. And I've heard them all through the years why it can't be done, including the guests coming in at 12 o'clock at night and wants to put their boat in at 3 o'clock in the morning to go out fishing, or 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, that's the exception to the rule. And I don't think we ought to make policy based on the exception to the rule. How often is that going to happen? For us to say we're going to deny the rest of the membership, the 8,400 members that we have, the capability of getting from this amenity revenues which will reduce their assessments. I don't care whether it's coming from guests or commercial people, or whether we make the rule that members don't have to pay, but we do the same thing for the parking privilege at the beach club. And I don't know why it becomes a big issue or concern about doing the same thing at the ramps at White Horse Park, to say, okay, you're having a parking privilege here, you're going to pay for that privilege, or at least have permission to do it. If you're a member, you can buy one kind of pass. If you're not a member, you have another. If the member's going to have guests, it's their responsibility for the member to provide for the guest in any way that's. It's not, to me, to bring up that issue, and I've heard it every single time I raised this issue, and I missed last year because I promised Tom Terry I wouldn't do it.
And I sat next to you, so you could.
Well, this August I probably will bring it up.
We could have been down 1,000.
So at any rate, I'm just saying that given that we go with the dog park people had to raise funds, the skateboarders, the children. I don't see too many seniors using it. Have raised it.
Never know.
That's an interesting
the
image.
boaters
Well put.
can use it for free. Now, with respect to the kayaks and the canoes, about 7 years or 6 years ago, Ocean Pines built a kayak launch facility, which consisted of a small bulldozer going through. If you're standing at the ramps, it was to the right of the ramps. They bulldozed the underbrush out, came in with about 2 dump trucks full of sand to give those kayakers, put up a sign, launch kayaks over here, and now I think it's all overgrown. It hasn't been maintained. But everybody, when that thing was open, at least, not everybody, the kayakers that used it seemed very, very glad that it was there. It was easy for them to launch, and they were out of the way of the motorized boats that were being launched on the ramps.
To that point, in the new design, that area that looks a little sandy currently is going to be rebuilt, for lack of a better description, and revitalized in some ways.
Okay.
That was in the plans.
Okay, well then, I've heard that the perpendicular extension going into the lagoon was for launching kayaks.
No. That's for tying up maybe after the fact. To put, but not so much for kayaks as it is for.
Use that theory. No kayak would use that.
They would use that sandy area that's currently, there's like one shrub in the middle of the sandy area.
And I think personally, like anybody else who pays to use something, you're going to have a little more respect for it. And you're not going to cut out all the problems. I know Chief Massey, when we met with Chief Massey about 7 years ago about putting in an electronic gate, he said, I'll support you all the way on that. He said, for my policemen to be gatekeepers is a misuse of their talent. And he said, I don't like the fact that they have to go over there and open those gates in the morning and close the gates at night. And so he said he would support some other way of control, and he feels like that could bring back better monitoring, at least of the usage, because these electronic things can give you all kinds of statistical information. At any rate, the last thing I'll say is that I find it kind of, or maybe I said this at the beginning, I'm getting old, I can't remember what I said 5 minutes ago. I find it kind of strange that this committee is going before the commission with regard to the ramp and trying to get some money for the ramp, well, whatever, for getting any more money, let me start off so you can shake your head yes. I find it strange that this board will go to the commission for more money to help OPA do it, run its business, and yet keep year after year after year refusing to take this opportunity to get revenue out of those ramps. So, that's all I'm...
Gene, thank you. Appreciate your comments. Doris, you've been very patient, okay?
First of all, I feel for you people. I understand your problem. Personally, I think the police should be out there more often. But anyway, the boat club did a 3-day monitoring. They found 3 people, not owners, in Ocean Pines to use that ramp. There are very few people that are not. Some of the people from Delaware, we put our boat in Delaware, we store it. The Delaware people bring it down here and launch it for us. They're using it for us. So that's all I can say.
Would you subsidize the delivery of my refrigerator while I subsidize the delivery of...
No, let me tell you something which I forgot to say in the beginning. Ocean Pines was formed as a boating community, not a tennis committee, not anything else, but it was a boating committee.
Okay.
Community.
I'm just saying if you feel for us, this
Okay.
argument...
Wait, we're not going to argue
We don't-
among each other. We're
we
here to
don't
get
do
input.
that.
Okay, thank you. Last comment, sure, go ahead.
Last
Tom
comment,
Janus.
I don't get a chance?
Joe,
quick.
this, just, excuse me.
First off, I don't know how the survey was done. I personally have talked to an owner of one of the dealerships within 10 miles of here. He does work on my boat. And he told me that he puts 10 boats a week in at that ramp. 10 a week. And sometimes in the spring, 10 a day. When it's
But are they
really
Ocean Pines boats?
No, not even.
These could be boats for people who live in
anybody.
Ocean City
These
or
are
any
boats for
place.
whoever has a boat that he's storing in his back lot. And most people in Ocean Pines, as you know, store their boats in their driveway. So, no, there are people that are storing their boats in the back in his lot. This is the ramp he uses because it's a nice ramp.
Where do these boats belong?
Everywhere.
I mean, exactly. They're in Ocean Pines, is that right?
No, they're everywhere. Ocean
They're not
City,
necessarily-
Delaware. No, he stores boats for people all the way up to Rehoboth.
But does
He happens to be within 10 miles of this ramp, and he uses it. I'm just telling you what he told me. So I didn't get the information of whose boats they were. I apologize. Maybe they were delivered. Some of them, I'm sure, were delivered for Ocean Pines people.
Could we go to a commercial entity like that and say, hey, you can use our boat ramp for a fee?
Yes.
This
that's
all
what-
gets back,
that's the point.
before we turn to Joe for the, because I do need to,
That's-
time-wise, we do need to do something.
Okay, if I can
here,
just
but-
finish real
Sure.
quick.
Yeah.
And then, secondly, so I talked to him just to find out how many commercial boats they put in. Secondly, I own a property over on the other side of the bay. It's a private Chesapeake Bay community called Columbia Beach. I have the gate card to get in because it's on the bay, and they don't want everybody in the bay. It has a little punch card key reader. You put your card in, the gate opens. If you're a guest, you find the name of the person that owns the property, you push that, it calls me on my cell phone. I push a 7, the gate opens. That's how it works. It's not rocket science. There's a camera right over the top of it, so they have a security guy in the neighborhood who works on the board, as a volunteer position, and he monitors the computer that has this thing in it, and he can tell. And then what they also do is they give UPS, or it could be some of the boat dealers, a special code, and they find out how often they use it, and they bill them accordingly. That's how it works. It's not that hard. I mean, they make these systems. We could use it there easily. I'll even get you the name of it if you want and send it to you, because I would think it would be a great idea. And lastly, the perpendicular pier, I understand you want it to hold boats, but you have 2 piers going out. When I go out, I put a boat on the other side. As soon as I launch my boat, I stick it to the other side, go park my car, and then I go.
Other side of what?
The other side of the pier. You have 2 outside piers. Move it around the ramp and set it out there, right? I mean, there's that much room.
They're not in good shape, they're a safety hazard.
Well, you're putting brand new ones in, is my point. You're putting brand new floating docks in, so they're only going to be this high off the water.
One dock down the middle.
There's only going to be one dock down the middle?
No, that's not true.
I thought it was.
I got the plan right over there. You want to look at it? It's your plan.
Can I see it again, Mike?
Here it is, right here.
The plan was, as we had it originally, was a single floating, if you go to West Ocean, excuse me for interrupting, if you go to West Ocean City and look at the brand new ramps across from Chaplain's Galley, that were put in about 3 or 4 years ago by the county. The plan was to put a single floating dock down the middle with ramps on each side of the single floating dock. So the floating dock would, then you would have a constant height for stepping in and out of the boat.
That's a great design. We agree.
But identical to the ones at West Ocean City.
Okay.
And then also, the other thing was it would not be further out into the canal.
Yep.
The cut would be back into the land, into the parking lot more, and it would be like 7 foot deep at the bottom, whatever. Now, the point was, to your question, the little 25 foot or whatever it was,
It's a 25-foot
perpendicular.
temporary
Right.
berthing
Put it
for
right.
load and unload.
You launch those two, get off the dock, get off the ramp, and just put it off to the side. And then you can walk down, there'd be about a 4 or 5 foot wide area to get to the floating dock to the right. And as I mentioned earlier, the sandy beach that was once a kayak launch is going to be rejuvenated to make it a better kayak launch. Purpose of that floating dock strictly was to clear off people from staying into the ramp area. And it's much safer, a floating dock at the height of the boat, than trying to come off a bulkhead of some form.
I agree.
Yeah, we all agree with
We
that. It's a
agree, I
great
agree with
design.
that. And honestly, I think you could, the perpendicular pier, if you had a gate on there, half of the people that use it now probably wouldn't use it ever again. A lot of the commercial
To the
guys
point
probably-
there, Ray, the MAC committee really has no problem with putting the gate up front, other than how do you secure it and how do you keep it functioning? The problem is, a lot of times these gates fail.
Well, I mean, they do fail, absolutely. And I've gone to my community and the gate's been wide open. But I guarantee you, it doesn't fail as much as the one we have now.
Well, I'm not saying.
I mean, it's gonna
If
be
somebody
there
wants to
forever.
do research from the board or have.
Gentlemen,
Just knowing that
I'm
it's
going,
there.
I don't want discussion back and forth between you, I appreciate that. A lot of good input, I promised Joe an opportunity to talk here. So Joe, you're next, because we've got a lot of agenda to cover, so go ahead, Joe.
patient enough?
You, Joe, I'm so proud of you.
Time's up.
Who are you again? Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road, 410-208-0114. JOE@outdoors.net.
What was that, your jail number? Or what
Well, I don't know, you gotta identify yourself or something like that. But anyway.
Your bank.
Back in the beginning, Mr. Corbell said something about didn't know why the stories or whatever. I'm here, one thing, I like to compliment the lady right over there, Nancy Powell, for being a good journalist and covering this story, Bill. Because without her good journalistic coverage of this story, we wouldn't be here today. And none of these people who have these concerns would even know what was going on. So I disagree with you. I think the story was good. You know, the discussion started out with an incorrect premise when Mr. Clark and Mr. Terry agreed that the ramps are in here as being open to the general public because of a mistake by the board of directors. I'll disagree with that 100%. There was no mistake. Mr. Stevens at the 810 meeting made the motion, I believe it was in this room, made the motion to accept all the changes to MO2, and the motion failed. And the ramps removal was one of those items. That motion failed. So then when the board met back the next month on 9/17 and passed MO2, as it now stands, how many people in this room have a copy of MO2 with them?
Right here.
Good, I figured it'd be time. You know, we were talking about these one time before.
I mean, you read it from end
And
to end.
just out of curiosity, I said, if anybody has a copy of MO something, I'll give them $500.
I got it.
And there was, this was another, I knew it would be here today. This was at another time. The point is that we don't pay any attention to these things. And they're important. They're very important. But anyway, Dave, you made the motion, it failed. We were back to ground zero, so there was no mistake. If there was a mistake, it was the next board on 9/17. But anyway, but this gentleman right here, Peltier,
Yes.
in your group, he just told this board of directors the fundamental thing to do. That you as a board of directors have to come to some decision. Tell your general manager what you want, and he told you what to ask him for. We need to get control of this ramp. Control. It's that simple, really. That's what that gentleman was talking about. That's one way to get control of it. Oh, a lot of different ways to get control of it. As far as that ramp out there where you're going to have boats parked, I would compare that to widening the Route 90 from the last bridge to Ocean City and making it 6 lanes wide going into Ocean City. All that does is create a big parking lot, a wider parking lot. One place where somebody can move their boat out after they launch, get out quickly and put it on the outside, and then the next guy launches. How do we know the person that's out there using that area we're putting in isn't going to take a half hour more to do their work? It's all tied up again. That doesn't really solve any problem. It's useful. But at any rate, I think we need to get control of the ramp. And the suggestion somebody made, I believe, about putting some people there, let's put some people over there and pay them. I mean, we spend money like water around here on a lot of different things. And that boat ramp, we are a boating community, let's face it. But that boat ramp has a limited number of parking places. And if people go in there and park cars and where they shouldn't be parked and so on, it's a problem.
Thank you. Jody? Okay. Yes, Dave?
Since he mentioned my name, I take that as
Yeah, go ahead.
So, I'm just going back to the original subject of MO2. And I had read this page to page, and I was part of that long, laborious meeting in which, this is 7 pages. I mean, this is one of the most complex and most debated resolutions we have, and I still think it's pretty good, actually. Now, just going to the categorization, whether they're supposed to be in or supposed to be out. I think maybe there was an intent to get them out, and they didn't get out. So let me point out that there's 2 categories, general use amenities, and in general, no associated user fees. I'm just pulling that out. In general, no associated use, not no associated use fee. In general. Okay. Sponsored groups and approved clubs use these facilities at no charge. Members, for example, in this particular case, use them at no charge. Doesn't say you can't charge anybody else. Now, the list includes boat ramps, but it includes a lot of other things that, in fact, the general public does use at no fee. And the skateboard park is, a notable example. So, Tom Terry says, and I think you're mistaken, Tom, that, we have been trying to follow the word of MO2, the administration has. And if that means with boat ramps out, then obviously we're not, because we've got a sign that says you can't come in. And if it means we made a mistake and the boat ramps were supposed to be in, or in this, then we are following. But what about basketball courts? I mean, it says specifically here that's open to the general public. Walk around the corner of this building, walk over to the basketball court, got to go up close if you're like me, and look at the sign. My point is that MO2 is generally okay, as is, with these in, because if control is the main issue, you can still control it. Right. This gives you the authority to control it from a board resolution. Now, if control means that you have to pay money and you have to pass those user fees, as Jane is suggesting, onto the boating community in some way, in other words, they'll share the cost of gaining this control, then I would suggest that you probably should move it down into the fee-based amenities category with the other things. And that it would make sense to do that because it's fee-based in general. You can still, just as all of the other things under here are allowed to be used by the general public, it would too. Except, of course, they would pay a higher fee, and you can control it down to the amount of saying there's only so many uses. I don't know how to do that, and I don't have a vote, and I don't know the problem.
Do you favor keeping it open to the general public? Yes or no? It's a simple question.
No, it's not. Yeah, no, it's not a simple question.
It is.
It's not a simple question. I, in the same sense as the other fee-based amenities are open.
There's
to
no
general
fee over there
yes.
now. There's no fee on the boat ramps right now.
Well, you didn't listen to what I said, Joe. What I said was that you can establish a fee by using this. And should you establish a fee, It sounds to me, from what everybody has said here, regarding the matter of control, is that absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. There should be permits or however you want to do it. Key cards, I don't know. You should do it.
Would you sell them to non-members?
And you should, yes.
You would?
Yes, I would.
I don't think these people said they were in favor of that.
Well, as a matter of fact, I don't think they said they weren't.
No, I didn't say
And
that.
I'm not going to debate this. I don't know the answer
Yeah,
to this.
I don't want,
We're not gonna have a debate.
we don't want a debate going on here.
Okay.
Dave, that's not
That's
fair to
enough.
you, that's fine.
Okay.
I like, Tom's been having his hand here, so.
We've spent a lot of time here. I think everybody had a good chance to say what they wanted to say. I hear two issues. The first and foremost is getting control of the area. The realities are, and I have been told by none other than the guru of the bylaws himself, that he watched the tape of the meeting. We clearly discussed taking the ramps out of this document. When it was finally revised, it didn't get taken out. So was there a mistake made by the board in voting? We voted for the wording the way it is in front of us. Quite frankly, we got to make a decision on what to do with this area. Getting control of it. Do you open it to everybody? Do you sell passes? Do you put an arm up? Which, if they get knocked down, they cost a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of implementation issues, which I said earlier, which I would look to Bob to give us a sense of what it is. The other piece of this is when it comes to what the MAC has put together for a design. If you have someone there administering this area, they can administer the use of that side dock to make sure it's not misused. If you don't have someone there monitoring it, then you could end up with an issue with that side dock being misused. All of that is an implementation having to do with the implementation plan that I would look for the general manager to come back to the board of directors and say, the essence of the community was certainly heard here today. Number one, get hold of the control of the area. And number two, figure out what is the best methodology for managing this going forward. And then we as a board can decide once and for all whether we move the ramps down on the page to be a fee-based facility or we keep it where it is or whatever we do. Right now, we clearly have an issue that needs to be resolved. And I thank everybody for their input. And we've spent an hour and 10 minutes on this, so I think, in all due respect, I think we'll move on.
Okay, update on Memorial Day events and plans for the ribbon cutting. I'm going to segue this right over to Bob. Aren't you? Thank you guys for coming, I appreciate it.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to say. Appreciate you listening.
Thank you.
You're going to go over and yell at people.
You're going to go yell at the people over there, okay?
Okay, as you all know, this weekend, Sunday the 8th, is the open house for the yacht club, or grand opening, as it's been tagged. The invites are out. We sent invites in addition to publicizing it's open and
Very nice, by the way.
the different. Thanks. That's marketing. So good job with that, Tracy. You didn't get one, did you, Jack?
It was a mistake.
I pulled yours. So.
We invited you.
My neighbor brought it over to me.
Did you get an invite?
All right. So
You talking about in the mail, though?
we some received by mail. Yes.
I didn't get one.
So think about it.
Think about it, Joe.
Did you get one, Nancy?
Duh!
Did you get one, Nancy?
I was invited.
All right. Okay, so that's this weekend. Some of the highlights are, what's that? Some of the highlights, I would say that the biggest one I'd like to highlight is the ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock. That's when there's going to be some speaking and some happiness, and I'm sure some might not find it joyful, but I think that most of us will. We're finally open. We're going to cut the ribbon. We're going to talk about some things that got us there. We've already had a lot of people calling to say they're coming, so it should be a big event for everybody. So just looking forward to having everyone there.
I'm looking forward to not having the possibility of the floor falling through while we're doing the event.
I saw in the paper that there were guided tours. Is that happening?
Well, do like we did when we were
Just let people
touring the
wander through,
facility.
or-
As they come in, we'll take groups and be happy to walk them around.
Okay.
It's we have a day of just a lot of activities going
So
on.
you have people planned to be there to do that?
Yes.
Great, okay. So we're all looking forward, and where will the ribbon cutting actually be? Right in front of the building, or
We'll
out
let
by
you know
the
as you
door?
arrive.
You don't know. You don't know yet.
No, no.
We determined.
The plan right now is to do it in the on the second floor.
The second
We have
floor.
the big banquet hall. It certainly has plenty of room. We can control the environment, and it allows people to keep walking the other areas. While if they don't want to be part of it, it's not tying up other parts of the building. So.
Okay.
What hours is Marty giving people tours?
You'll get a special invitation on
Actually,
that
I've
one
been
in the
in
mail.
times and somebody's trying to take me on a tour every time I call. I got dragged through the kitchen.
Okay, any questions about the ribbon cutting, anybody? Okay.
No, but good, it's going to be a good show.
Weather's supposed
Really
to
good
be
show.
absolutely
Perfect.
gorgeous.
Of course.
Yes. And I forgot.
What?
I'm excited about it.
Put that in the minutes.
He whispered to me, just so you all know, that was his whisper in my ear. I'm excited.
Okay, jump car update. It sounds to me like that's you, Tom.
Well, it's just partly, we obviously, when we met on Saturday morning on Memorial Day weekend, one of the long conversations we had with Joe Moore was what authority do we and don't we have, and how far can we go, because we're obviously embarking not only on we have situations out there that just have not been handled. There's multiple junk cars on lots, there's buildings that aren't in good shape. We've tried taking them to court. There's lots of issues that have gone on before to try to resolve it. I know that as part of that meeting, we had asked Joe Moore to provide Bob with some guidance as to what he, as a general manager, is empowered to do, and to basically, is there any other action that our board needs to take in order for us to, number one, begin to address this, and then long-term, put together a game plan that allows us to not only keep piecemealing all this, but put together a full-blown plan that addresses, the building that is underwater and will never get the money back, but the outside looks like the devil, and we as a homeowners association, as a effort of policy, need to make a decision of whether we're going to expend HOA money to fix these buildings up, even though the reality is we may never get $1 of that back. It is negatively affecting the neighbors, and there are some more urgent actions that can be taken right now having to do with cars and things like that. I just wanted to get an update from Bob and share here what we've heard from Joe, and just kind of where are we in kind of addressing that issue that we spent well over an hour talking about at the board meeting.
You're asking me a question?
I'm asking.
Does this mean
While I did that long lead-in, you were supposed to be thinking.
Oh, there you go. Do I not need to cover it again at the regular board meeting?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay. I'm talking with Joe. I mean, we're looking at the resolutions, looking at what the county ordinances are, looking in greater detail to see how we might have some more teeth to expedite or more aggressively address, because this has come up a lot in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, and we're looking holistically, not just with the cars, but the condition of the properties, the one burned out home. We have a number of issues that are continuing to arise. I think it cycles. I mean, a community of our size, it's going to cycle, but we're just trying to look to see if there's a better course of action or more aggressive course of action we can take, so it's not delayed as much. I mean, it's easy when you have 8,400 properties, unless you're the homeowner right next to it, then it's horrendous because you deal with it every day. So we're dealing with working through legal and looking at what the county statutes may be that we may be able to further enhance our approach to correcting the issues, as well as what our resolutions and bylaws allow us to do.
Do you think you'll have a little bit more information at the next board meeting?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. This was my update. This was
well,
my update.
obviously we have situations right now that are affecting people. I know Mr. Hinkle's here because he's going to want to talk for a minute about this.
Yep.
So how soon can we give them some information as
Sharon,
to what we do?
This is an issue that has been in the community for many, many years.
Right.
It's not going to be solved in 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'm at not even a 2-week mark, and you're asking me for an update. It will be 2 weeks later, and we're asking for the next update. Realistically, You know, it's probably going to take 30, 45 days or so. If we can do it sooner, we will. But
Okay.
then I've got to bring it to the board, and then we've got to decide what the policy. It's probably going to be a policy-driven thing, and not a, you know, Bob's going to go do this. We're going to need to talk about it, you know, when it's appropriate, when we have enough information to say, here's how we're going to address
So
it.
that's a fair approach. Okay, thank you. Marty?
I understand it seems like it's 2 weeks, but we've got property owners that have been patient to a fault. And I think really they're at wit's end. And I'm not just talking about Ed. I'm talking about Jack. I'm talking about Norman. I'm talking about Battersea. When I went over to Ed's house to look at his problem, I mean, I was stopping my car and getting out and taking photographs of 3 Army Jeeps under blue tarps. I mean, I saw stuff I couldn't believe. I was in Ocean Pines. It was unbelievable. The house on Battersea with 4 cars, one of them on jacks that isn't safe. I don't know what authority we need. No, stripped down, comma, partially wrecked, comma, or junk motor vehicle, comma, or sizable part thereof, comma, shall be permitted to be parked on any street in the section, or the subdivision, or on any lot. Period. What do we do to enforce that DR? I can't believe it takes a court order, but I guess it does.
You know what, we've had this conversation a lot, and yes, we all want to correct it. But in order to do that, it's probably going to cost the association money to do that. We're probably not going to recoup that money. I know your answer is, I'll usually do it, and then we'll sue them for it. But you can't get blood out of a turnip, so you see
talking about a house.
I'm talking about anything. I'm talking about even just cutting the grass, and it costs us money to do that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I where I am have enough properties that have been abandoned and trees on them, and just drive down my street. It's definitely one of those. I got it, Marty. I live on a street that's littered with that, but at what expense to the association members? I worry about money not being able to be recouped.
I know.
Money that I know you don't.
Our job is to enforce the declaration of restrictions. And anybody that thinks that's not a violation of the declaration of restrictions is reading impaired.
Okay, let me ask you a question, Marty. And, excuse me, Marty, I'm not looking at, you and I have talked about it. We're not in disagreement here.
Nor am I.
You know, none of us are. These cars need to go. The question becomes, okay, you're in violation, continuous violation, whatever we want to call it. The part of the reason we had Joe come to the meeting and talk about this at the board meeting was, okay, we have a violator. What do we do now? What is the next step? Can we take a tow truck and just go on their property, grab the damn piece of junk, and haul it off? Do we have to have a court order? What is it that we have to have that enables us? It's one thing to say they're in violation. It's another thing to say we need to do something about this.
That's why he was here.
Right.
This is 5 years.
That's not the issue, Marty.
From today forward,
I understand.
how are we going to do it? That's
And
what we're about.
honestly, Marty, I'm dead serious. I have the same problem where I live.
If this was next door to me, this wouldn't be a problem anymore.
Yes, that's you
President.
personally. I'm not going out there.
November 9th, 2007.
Yes.
Remedy of the association.
Mm-hmm.
If the board of directors chooses to authorize me to do so, I can file a complaint for declaratory judgment in the Circuit Court for Worcester County. Such action would be warranted by the fact that there is an actual controversy for the court to determine, that is, the forcible prevention of an owner from entering onto his property by an inspector at the time. I'm advised the inspector can or was assaulted by the owner by throwing a flashlight at the guy and ordering him off the property. Should the board choose to do so, an alternative action would be to invoke the provisions of the specific entry upon the land by a 2/3 majority vote of the board of directors, as is evident by the context of the authority, the board by a 2/3 vote can not only vote to authorize entry upon the land, but can thereafter repair, maintain, restore the lot and the exterior of the building and any other improvements erected thereon, so forth and so on. So basically, he figured it out in 2007.
Amen, Jack. We're reinventing the wheel here.
Right.
And I'm not trying to set anybody up or make anybody look bad or anything of that nature. I'm really not.
Yes, the board is.
It's there.
Jack, it's wonderful. You read it. I know it. I've read it myself. What nobody seems to have an answer for, the board of directors votes for these cars to be removed. Okay? What are the legal steps that have to be taken for a tow truck to go on the property and actually do it?
I think you called it, what do you call it, declaratory what?
Which means you have to go to court and get a declaratory judgment that says you can do that. Which means we can't just vote to go send a tow truck out to pick up a car. We have to go to court and ask for the right to do it. That's how I read that. So if that's what we need to do, then that's what we need to start doing. Because I can assure you, my 4 years here, us voting to take people into continuous violation and taking them and sending them letters from it's a waste of time.
Right.
It's an absolute waste of time for most of these situations. The reason Joe was there was to help us understand what is it we have to do as a board to vote at the end, which we started to do at the last meeting, that says take them to court, get whatever ruling we need. You can't just assume because we say, hey, Bob, go get a tow truck. He can't do that.
Okay, let me pose it this way. Kyle, how long would it take you to codify a plan of action, a consistent process by which you enforce these guidelines with Joe Moore? How long would it take you to do that?
7 years so far.
I'm going to tell you between 30 and 45 days, as I stated to Sharon when we start.
That's acceptable to me.
And the rationale behind that is, in great example, I had a conference call with Joe and Joe Moore, Chris Woodley, about junk vehicles. We talked about the county, what the county declares as a junk vehicle. We went over that. We're going through all the steps, the legal side, to figure out what we can do, how quickly we can do it, and we're going to put it in writing so everyone sees it so it's clear. We've got resolutions, we've got bylaws, but there's some people say it's clear as this, it's clear. Look, if you all want to tell me to go start towing vehicles, give me the guideline that supports that. Done.
Nobody even said to go tow
I'm sorry, Joe,
excuse
this
us.
is why these aren't effective.
Well,
Please
no
let
wonder
me
you're saying
talk.
things that are
Joe,
absolutely
you're
true.
interrupting,
Joe,
please.
again, Joe interrupts because he can't play fairly. Here's what I'm saying. If that's the case, if you allow me the opportunity, it's highlighted, the board's made it an issue from, like, it's heightened, it's bubbled up to where it's a top issue. We had Joe in 2 weeks ago. Since then, I've followed up with him. He's pulled some additional documentation, and we're coming up with our plan. I agree with you guys. And as I said earlier, I wouldn't want to be next to one of them. I went out and looked at the Battersea property today. I agree with everything everyone's saying. But we can't just fling at it. We have to actually put the process.
But it is, hold on, Marty. Okay. It is now one of your number one priorities, correct?
Yes.
Okay. 30 is better than 45. I can live
Agreed.
with 45, but 30 is better than 45. But it's one of your number one priorities.
It is a priority that I'm working on.
It is your number one priority.
It is not my number one priority.
Okay.
Day-to-day activities, day-to-day operations is number one priority. You can't pin me down and say this is number.
I'm not
you can
really,
vote.
I'm not trying to pin you
Okay,
down.
so 30 to 40.
I'm trying to get it in an
30
action
to
plan.
45 days. And the only reason I'm giving that much time, Jack, we have another board meeting in between.
Exactly.
And all I'm doing is
And it
plug
can't
in
be
to
done.
get this. Well, it may be. I'm
Okay.
not. There's no hesitation on our part.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Can I ask a question about our side of it?
Yes.
Have you ever gotten I keep calling it the ECC, shame on me, that's
CPI?
what it was for 35 years.
CPI.
Have you ever gotten them have you ever been able to file a complaint about your problem?
I filed a complaint via sending them an email and asking them
We've
to
never
come out.
seen it.
and they came out and said they can't look under the covers. They can't enter the property. All right?
Okay.
And remember,
And I'd like to bring up.
yeah.
Well, hang on, we'll
let
it's
you.
very
let's
important
finish
that
the
people
tape.
understand.
I'm
At
quiet.
our,
Go ahead.
And remember, we asked Joe at the meeting about lifting cover, looking under, those type of things, and there wasn't a clear, yes, actually step on and do it.
We do have it in writing.
Well-
Because Ford was the incident that he just read about, where the inspector went on the property and lifted the cover and got hit with a
Understood.
flashlight.
And again, we want to make sure we have a clear process, and the board agrees with the process we're going to follow, at least the majority of the board, and that's what we'll start to do, whatever it may be. So there's no, trust me, I'm as frustrated as everyone, with the exception of the folks living next to these properties. I mean, we want to enforce it. It hurts all of our property values to have properties in poor condition. It just does.
I appreciate that. And so there's, Jack, you're comfortable with the time
Yeah.
frame, it's a
Well,
priority,
yeah.
and we'll let the other people talk. I want to go around the table
Yeah, I'm
first here.
fine. I'm okay.
Marty,
I'm done.
cool, everybody else? Okay, I know Mr. Hickle wants, I'm sorry, I didn't
I
cut
said I'm
you
done.
off. Okay, Mr. Hickle.
Okay, first I appreciate putting this item on the agenda. It was not on the agenda, so I really appreciate that. First, I made some pretty pictures. Now, I've heard you all talk. We agree there's problems with vehicles, all right? This is what I've put up with for 7 years now, all right? These covers are moldy. They're cracking. It's ridiculous, all right? There are 2 cars here. One has not been moved. Well, but I've been here 7 years. They haven't been moved in 7 years. All right? I know for a fact that they are not registered. All right? I won't tell you how I know that, but I know it for a fact. All right?
don't admit that.
Marty, did you give him any advice?
Follow my advice, they both went to the mom's house.
Wait a minute now. One has flat
Let him
tires.
talk then.
One has flat tires. The other had a tree limb go through the windshield, busted the windshield. All right? So they can't be, they're junk vehicles. According to your own guidelines, they're junk vehicles, all right? Here's another one on Battersea Road. It's like I'm living in a junkyard, all right? This one has, I have no idea how long that's set there, okay? It's ridiculous. Here's the worst. Here's the worst. This is the one with the 4 vehicles
Oh, yeah.
on it.
That's
One of
my
them
favorite.
up on jacks, all right? None of them registered. It's crazy, all right? Here's one that I was referred to, Willow Way, all right, in South Ocean Pines, all right? Here's a house with 2 Volkswagen buses sitting in front, all right? This one has weeds growing around the wheels, been sitting there, again, for who knows how long, all right? Here's Willow Way 1A, all right? You will note there's a Volkswagen in the driveway. There's a Volkswagen parked along the road. I thought we weren't allowed to park vehicles along the road. All right? So, okay, I hear that everybody agrees that we got to do something about this. So I got 2 things to say, all right?
Well, they do recycle, though. We can see that.
All right?
They recycle their trash.
Yes, that's good. Great. I would suggest that we differentiate the property problem from the junk vehicle problem. Seems to me that can be addressed a lot quicker than the housing problem we have. Make it 2 different issues.
Makes sense to me.
All right? The second thing I would say, apparently we've already got guidelines on this. Their board resolution M01, approved on December 16th, 2009, states, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but in the event an inspector cannot obtain permission from the owner to enter onto a property, the GM shall make the decision to authorize entering onto the property, to conduct the inspection, or close the file. It's already there. Why aren't we following what's already there? I'm done.
No, let me respond to that one,
Okay,
because I think it's
thank
very
you.
important we understand
Yeah.
that there is a difference between having an inspection done and getting an inspection done, and what we as a board, when the complaint comes in, Up till now, it's been this send them a letter, take them to court, all this process of what we're allowed to do and not do. What this board is discussing is, okay, rather than simply going after dues they owe, or you got to move the cars or whatever the heck it is, being much more proactive about it, going to the court saying we want your approval to yank these things out of here, which we have not been doing. So I agree with you. The steps are there to allow us to get to the point of action, but our procedures for action up till now have been referred to legal for legal to write them a letter. What we're saying, I believe, is we want to go farther than that, and so you want us to too.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, okay, I think that's kind of where. I've talked to all of you. That's kind of where we are. It's time for us to go a little further than we have gone and to implement. Again, I think it's not a matter of us not having the procedures to. It's the end game we end up with, which is this weak, please don't do this anymore, which I'm sick of, personally.
With that being said, and most people in the room won't know, the board members will know, we've actually been more aggressive in some areas. If you all recall, 3 weeks ago, I sent you an email that we were towing a vehicle that was...
Dirty deeds.
I was going to say who, but we went in...
Why not?
I don't think it's appropriate. You can do what you want.
Again, if you're enforcing our DRs, it's very appropriate.
Marty, let him finish, please.
I'm good.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Anybody else around the table?
I did have my hand up.
Table first, Joe.
You want this, man?
I'm asking the table.
I agree that we need to go after the vehicles, but I also would not put the residences. I think we need to solve the whole problem. It might be easier to tow a vehicle, but I think we need to solve the whole problem.
I agree. Well, yeah.
So,
agreed.
I just want to make that point. That's
Yeah,
all.
good
And I'm
point.
sure everybody agrees with that.
Bill, anything? Okay. Joe.
Thank you. Joe Reynolds, 84 Watertown Road, 410-208-0114,
Give me that social security number.
outdoors.net. I don't think you're listening to this gentleman. You're going on about what we do after we get do we send it to the court? Do we tow it away? This gentleman went to CPI, told them that he had this problem next door in the driveway, right next to him. I've been over to his house. I don't know how many board members have.
So am I.
And he's been living with that for 7 years. Somebody across the street said they've been there for 14 years. God knows how long they've been there. His fundamental problem is that he called CPI and said, come over and take a look. They went over and said, we can't do anything because we can't go on the lot. Did they tell you that?
Exactly.
Exactly. Now, I went up to CPI and I said, I have a copy. Oh no, I better not offer 500. How many people got a copy of MO2 in a room, or MO1 in a room?
With me?
Yeah, with you.
I
Right
raised
there.
that.
Okay, MO1. I went to CPI. I said, anybody here know what this is? MO1. Oh, well, not really sure. So I wanted to ask the question, since this was signed in 2009? 2009 gives the general manager the authority, the board of directors voted in the resolution to give the general manager the authority to authorize one of his inspectors to go on a lot if the owner doesn't give his permission. And as it turns out, Mr. Thompson was a member of the board of directors when this was passed. And what Mr. Thompson at the time said was, and I agree with him when he said this, his position personally is he doesn't think inspectors should go on lots without permission under any circumstances unless you get a court order. I agree with that. But having said that, the board of directors, in its wisdom, passed M01. And as Mr. Thompson also said at the time, referring to his predecessor, Mr. Olson, if we can't trust our highest officer, our general manager, to do this, then we have bigger problems. And I agree with you, Bob. If we can't trust our general manager to do this, we have bigger problems. The exact same thing you said about Mr. Olson. Now, MO1 says the general manager can authorize somebody, his inspectors to go on lots. How many times since 2009 has a general manager authorized an inspector to go on a lot without permission? My guess, probably none, but who knows? I don't even know if any inspectors ever requested, but the homeowner's problem is that he went to CPI. Now, the average homeowner in here, he's not going to come to board meetings, he's not going to go see the president, he's not going to go see the general manager. He calls CPI, he's got a problem. CPI says to him, we can't help you, we can't go on the lot. What's he supposed to do? How many people are going to end up like this? And Tom, it's very simple. Joe Moore even said at the meeting on Saturday, repeating what he said back in 2007, he said, you can go on the lot and lift it up and look, see if it's got a registration on it. If it doesn't have a registration, Worcester County Code, its definition of a junk vehicle is one without a current valid tag on it.
I have no idea.
I
why
think
you're
if we went
referring
over
to
and
me
looked,
on
we
that
find
one.
out it
Go right
wouldn't have a
ahead.
tag. And I think our resolutions refer to tagging in some way. But the point is, listen, the man asked for some help. What you should have done is, CPI should have requested, if they didn't think they'd go on, they should have requested permission to go on the lot. In my view, Bob should have given it to them. They go on the lot, they lift it up, they're not registered, they file a complaint. It bubbles up to the board, and the board says, go to court and seek to get the thing removed.
Right.
Why aren't we doing it? Why is there always a, what do you call it?
Roadblock.
I mean,
something.
roadblock. I mean, it's like we want to jump over a 2-foot ditch, but we want to build a 4-mile bridge to get over it. I mean, this is elementary stuff, I think.
That was a very poor analogy, by the way.
Well, that's okay.
I liked
I don't always
Did
get
you
it
like
right.
it? I thought it was a
I don't
little.
always get it right. And may I say, Ms. Moore, you're running for re-election to the board of directors. And you sat there and you said, well, I don't know if we want to spend money taking care of this stuff. Here's a resolution in my hand. How many people have MO4 here? How many people have a copy of MO4?
What is MO4?
What is MO4? Good question, right? What is MO4? Sharon, can you tell me what MO4 is? You know what MO4 is?
What is
Joe, what's the point? Come on, let's go.
MO4 is a resolution. MO4 is a board resolution that passed by the board of directors, in effect, says maintenance of lots.
Yeah.
This says, I mean, we're talking about whether the guy can walk on a lot. This resolution passed by this board, in effect, not this board, but a board, in effect, it says if the grass is over 10 inches, the general manager or CPI can go ahead and cut the grass. They don't have to ask the owner. We go and cut the grass, send them a bill.
Which is what we've been doing.
No, you can't, I don't care what that says. The law says we can't go on that
Right.
property without
Without a court order.
without a vote.
And my
Yes.
comment about
Correct.
the cost is, we can go and cut the grass and send them a bill, but
Marty.
they're not paying their bills.
Can I see it?
Read MO4 and ask your own attorney who reviewed this.
That's it.
I'll tell you can't make this stuff up.
Anybody else have any comments?
Just a quick question. That cover like boats and jet skis or any type of vehicle or item that needs to have registration?
We had
Just a question.
a discussion of a piece of equipment from part of a back of a truck
He
that
claimed
was
it
left
wasn't
out
junk,
there.
and we said
was
it
junk,
wasn't.
you know.
Trailers or whatever.
Yes, it was a part of the trailers, so yes, and they said, you know, we thought it was junk. He says, no, it's not junk, so, you know, yes. And as far as we're concerned.
If it's not registered by the state, and it should be,
Yeah.
or it could be, then it's considered part of this same issue.
Or if it's part of a equipment that just lit, because it doesn't have to be a full vehicle. It could be an engine of a car sitting there.
That was a pickup insert.
It was a pickup insert that was sitting there.
Sharon, in MO2 or MO1 that says that the general manager can authorize people to enter a lot.
Mhm.
Are there any limiting factors in that particular part? If the inspector goes on it, can the inspector now, once on the property, do anything?
There are limiting factors. It's very clear. It says, as far as limiting factors go, it says, let's see, MO1, bear with me one second. MO1 limiting factor on inspections is, should, however, entering onto a lot be deemed required for an evaluation, examination shall be limited to observation and/or documentation.
So, all they can do is walk on the property and look around.
Yeah.
They can't lift anything up.
Well-
They can't go through doors.
Hold on. At the board meeting on Saturday, Mr. Morford asked that very specific question, and he said they can lift it up, that is a part of looking around.
But they can't remove it.
No.
Or fix
He
it.
said they can
In
fix
order
it.
for us-
Well, if they could lift up a cover, can they walk through a door?
I think he would object to that.
Walk through a door, what do you mean walk through a door?
If a door is open, can they walk through?
Then why would
No.
you,
A
whole
why would it be okay to lift the cover?
Are you referring to a residence?
I'm referring to whatever's on the property.
I would hope that they would be like Kevlar if they were on my property.
Dave's got his hand.
Dave?
Yeah, just go. I think I signed that one, Jeff.
No, you didn't.
I did it.
No, you didn't.
No, who did?
Yeah, got that one.
MO1, Bill Rako signed that.
Bill Rako?
I think.
Okay, just the information. Good. He's at full. It means he's all on.
December 16th, 2009 by Bill Rako.
Okay. Yeah, and that was another one that was long discussed. But the bottom line on this, I mean, inspector walking on property, kind of beat that in. And as Tom points out, well, not a whole lot's happened. I believe that if we look back in the records, that we would see that legal action has been taken in several cases, and that, in fact, they've been generally successful. A declaratory judgment, as Jack says, or pointed out in that document, I guess I don't know exactly what Bob and Joe are going to be talking about for the next 30 to 45 days. But if you got some clear-cut cases, and you have CPI verify that those pictures are really correct pictures, and see them, whether they go on the property or not, and they have evidence, then there's no reason why this board, at the very next meeting, can't make a motion to send this for declaratory judgment, get it down to Joe, 5 votes. There's not a reason in the world you can't do that.
And we did.
And we did.
Yeah, we did.
Not on the cover cars.
What's that?
Not on the cover cars.
We haven't even gotten a complaint on the cover.
By the way, this is, it's always going to have to be a case-by-case basis. Always.
Yes.
But you have to do it frequently. And I disagree with Terry. I know where she's coming from, and it's a fair comment that, we could spend a lot of money doing, it depends on how far it goes. But, I'll maintain, even though we won't get the money back, that it's going to do more for the appearance of Ocean Pines if they can do it on a regular basis than spending money on a new yacht club. I'm not picking on the yacht club, by the way. Can I pick something else? But I mean, you know my point.
And I agree with you, but it's so easily said, we'll just go in, cut the grass, and send them a bill. And my very next thought, and maybe it's because I do a lot of collections out there, is you're never going to see the money. So,
That's a fact.
And that's a fact. You're dead right. But
Absolutely.
we
The guy already
still
owes us.
have to cut the grass.
I'm not in disagreement with
Just
that.
like Ocean Parkway, we're going to cut the grass there.
I think
Doris, we have one more question with
one
Doris,
more.
and then we'll try to
I
wrap
think,
this up.
so what if it costs money? You're protecting the rest of us
Amen,
that
Doris,
live
amen.
here.
Thank you.
All right, you're right. And
I
here's
agree.
the issue
I
with,
agree.
let me just wrap this up with, here's the issue with the money. You have the example of $75 cutting the grass, who the hell cares, okay? You also have the house that's going to take thousands of dollars to get it to where it doesn't look like a junk. And there are houses in this community that are in that condition. Forget the car, I'm not forgetting the car thing, but this door opens to a much broader challenge. We have one house that's burned out.
Correct.
The
darn
agenda
things-
item you added was for junk cars. You want to expand that or what?
Correct.
Joe, you're out of line again.
Joe.
Yeah, thank you. This is a working session. It's not a board meeting where, all that stuff. Well, look, the bottom line is there are houses out there that we need to come to some conclusion of how far are we going to be willing to go as an association to go in. From a completely burned out hulk of a house that's been sitting there for 2 years that the county hasn't condemned, we haven't called for it to be condemned, nothing's happened to, the screen doors aren't fixed. There has to be a policy created. I think all the policies, I'm going to restate what I said earlier, all of the policies that have been written to this point all make sense. They all get us to the point of action. And then you have to say, what is acceptable as an action and what do we have to get in order to do it.
You keep using policy, but I think we need procedure.
Well, procedure, whatever word you want to call it.
Well,
All right.
procedure, policy, we know it, MO1 is a policy, MO2 is a policy, MO3, we don't have a procedure.
Right. That may very well be, Jack.
And it should be plain and simple so that they bring it to the board, 2/3 vote, bingo, let's go.
And I think that's
as
what
Mr. Stevens pointed out.
And that's what
and that's what I
All
think our
contrary,
general
all
manager is
contrary. MO1. Somebody needs to read this stuff. Here's
read it.
addendum A. Procedures for routing violation to resolution MO1, December 16, 2009. You were asking for procedures. Here they are. They were written in 2009. Nobody followed.
Now, listen to me. What I'm saying is that our attorney has indicated to us, in order to be on the safe side of the reading of the law, I'm not a lawyer. You know, I'm not, maybe you are, but I'm not a lawyer. So I have to depend on this guy to keep us out of trouble in terms of taking certain procedures against certain homeowners in order to protect the general interest of the community as a whole. We need to do that. I'm asking this guy, Mr. Thompson, our general manager, and the attorney to come up with a procedure so that we can eliminate all of this discussion about, well, it's already in this MO1, but it may be legally untenable, unusable,
Since you weren't there, you may not
unenforceable.
recall that Mr. Moore was involved in all this stuff.
MO1?
Joe, we're not going to
Okay.
have a
Never mind,
discussion.
never
Thank
mind.
you. Thank you very much.
I'm getting a headache.
You're giving me a headache.
Okay, I'd like
Can I
to
say
know.
one more thing? Can you just set my expectations here? I heard somebody say we could have the vote next board meeting if the CPI inspectors get out there and it's true. Can we have that vote next board meeting? Is that attainable?
What the gentleman is
In
asking.
order to issue a court order
What
to
the
the woman that
gentleman,
lives
what the
next door.
gentleman is asking for is, probably, the answer is probably, but what the gentleman is asking for is to set up a hard and fast procedure so that we don't have to address this in a meeting like this in the future. So that every time this issue comes up, we follow that procedure and we get it done. Whether it's if it's a burned out house, if it's junk vehicles or what have you. That's
The
what I would
answer
like to
is,
see
we
us
are not
do.
sure it'll be at the next meeting.
This man just wants you to do what
We are not
what
sure it'll be at the
written
next
in there
meeting,
right now.
but it is on our agenda, and it is not buried, okay? But we cannot say for sure it'll be
Actually,
2 weeks.
it can't be. If we follow
If you follow
procedure,
procedure, it can't
there
be.
is a letter that needs to be sent, another letter that needs to be sent. There's a time frame.
You need to read the procedure in MO1, Jack, and
Sorry,
maybe you know
that's
what the
a fact.
procedure is.
But it's gotta start, and it hasn't
I
started
read
yet.
it.
It really hasn't started yet. You'll take care of that right now.
Okay.
You can't start without a violation.
Okay,
You
I'd
are
like to,
HCC, ARC, IP, Y, XYZ. You'll get it started next.
okay, let's move on to the next topic. I think we have discussed this a lot, and it's not forgotten, okay? All right, Frank, Marine Advisors Committee report.
You can get these printed for you. Make sure everyone has a copy of what I'm talking about, even though I don't know what I'm saying.
You ought to run for board.
No, thank you. There's not enough money in those supplies for that.
See you later, Ray. Good luck.
Double our salary.
Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you all.
There you are, Joe.
Got a copy? Here. You got another one?
Five. One more. Here you go. All right. Make this simple. I'm not going to make a lot of hoopla about this. Everyone's heard global warming, sea is rising, the world's coming to an end. Pick your poison. It can be whatever it is. The tectonic plates of this country, East Coast especially, are shifting. So when they said in the last 100 years,
What's shifting?
the tectonic plates geologically,
that means your plates within the earth are shifting.
Tectonic.
Does that
Tectonic.
mechanize cars or what?
No.
I can't speak to it.
I'm
not a
Frank, I'm
geologist.
listening, sir.
Anyhow.
You have
I
the
am too
floor.
listening.
Pardon?
You have the floor,
You
sir.
have the floor.
Anyhow, the point being is, the shoreline has, for the last 100 years, essentially raised the water. But it's not really raising the water. The earth is sinking on the East Coast. And it's occurring every year. So they're projecting anywhere from 1 to 3 feet over the course of the next 100 years. You can throw your dice like anyone else. They don't know for sure.
For the next 100 years, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Over the next 100 years,
Okay.
the water tables, they're saying, will raise by 1 to 3 feet. And we had a scientist in the boat club here about 2 weeks ago telling us that. The Maryland Coastal Bays program will tell you that. You can see it from NOAA. So these numbers are not in dispute, at least. The only thing in dispute is how much it will raise. No one knows for sure. So, this law, which was put in place, I'm going to call it a law, it may not be a law, signed by the Worcester County Shoreline Commission, 1977. I have an arrow next to the point that we'll reference in the front page. Set standards for bulkheads throughout the whole county, for that matter. They have not been enforcing them. Simple as that. So what I'm going to recommend isn't enforcing them. What I'm recommending, or our MAC committee is recommending, that over the course of the normal maintenance cycle of bulkheads throughout Ocean Pines, not to run out here and change them all in 1 year. So it might take 20 or 30 years to go through this. It says you should have bulkheads that face the sea on the front page, 3 feet above the mean high water mark. Now, anyone can walk around Ocean Pines or any other place, and you can see the mean high water mark fairly clearly.
This is where you've got the arrow pointing to that part.
Yes.
Exactly. So when you look at the mean high water mark, by adhering to that standard with Ocean Pines, which we're recommending, whether it increases 1 feet or 10 feet, wouldn't matter, because the mean high water mark on the bulkheads would change over time. It would increase. This would protect, like we talked about 2 or 3 months ago, about temporary bulkheads. If you had a 3-foot bulkhead above the mean high water mark, it would also mitigate, over the long run, some of the problems houses have with, the surges and tidal storms, etc. So it's a pretty straightforward thing. All the scientists, you can just turn on any news report and somebody's jumping up and down telling you that, oh my God, we're sinking into the ocean, or global warming's raising the seas. I'm not getting into the political issues of global warming, etc. I don't even want to talk about it. The fact is, the tectonic? Got it. Plates are shifting. And what we were told in a meeting 3 weeks ago, what's actually happening, the scientists said, Europe is moving, or we're moving away from Europe by about 6 feet every 10 years or something like that. This was a scientist that the Maryland Coastal Bays program brought into the boat club meeting. So having said that, he said, if you think of a motorboat accelerating, the stern of the boat goes down. So as this plate is moving west, the coastline, if you will, goes down. So the relative water table on the coastline is going up. Now, how fast it's shifting, I have no idea. I don't even think they do. Yes.
Frank, I am not technically minded, so
I'm
excuse
not
my
either,
ignorance.
so thank you. We're
Okay,
both-
thank you. All right. If I'm understanding you, this is the bulkhead. Okay, the water's here. This is the high mark.
Right.
Mean water.
The high, is it mean, is from the high mark, isn't
No,
it?
it's mean.
So it's not the mean low,
The
so it's
average.
half.
The
So
average.
it could be
The
here, it could be
average
here, it's
line.
right in the middle.
Mean
Okay.
high tide.
You'll
So-
see the mark on that pretty much on the
So if it's there,
Right.
what this suggestion is, or the recommendation from the county, is that from the mean mark, the bulkhead needs to be 3 feet above that.
Correct.
Correct. And that is going to take care of or control the situation for flooding for the next 100 years.
Well, you got to think every 25, 30 years you're replacing bulkheads. Or something in that neighborhood. I'm not exactly sure. 25, 30 years. So if you had, if you will, a 1 foot rise, then you're going to raise the bulkheads every 25 years about 3 inches. 4 inches, excuse me. Right? So every 25 years, if you had a 100-year rise of 1 foot, I'm saying 1/3 of that's 4 inches every 30 years. I'm using it as what's the longest.
So how much higher should the bulkheads be than they are right now?
It depends where you are in the community. It's
Give
all
me a
over the
range.
place.
Are we talking
There
a foot?
is no standard. There's some that are 2 feet and some that are probably 4 feet.
Yeah, we don't have a good
We
standard.
right now have problems where Doris lives, over at Wood Duck to the northeast. They're too
They're all
low,
over
I
the place.
think. They're a
Danger.
foot.
Some are very low, some are, you know. Now, it also says here, if you're exposed to the, basically, I'm going to call it the bay, as opposed to a back canal someplace. If you read that bullet point that I have so identified. Having said that, I would think that if you're concerned about the overall rise of sea level, that, you know, using that standard throughout would probably be not a bad idea. Where's the problems? There's obviously a couple of problems that could arise from this type of standard. One, people who have very low bulkheads currently, because they never been properly installed or no standard involved with the installation. You may have to backfill behind it. Otherwise, you're going to have a physical wall between the property and the water.
Dike.
Well, it's a dike in some ways. It's a very good way to put it. But the question is, if you're having water problems, the way to have it resolved, that you're looking out for the community in the long run, is basically what the MAC is saying. We don't know what's going to happen. And almost anyone who's saying they're knowing is basically on a model of some form for the most part. And model, all you need is one piece of that model to go bad, and the whole model's not worth it. Tinker's dam, the old expression went. Being an old fart, I can say that. But, and anyhow, you may get some pushback from some people who have very low bulkheads. There's no doubt about that. So, I'm not sure how you handle that, other than telling them, look at, well, what do you, I'm recommending clearly go 3 foot.
Yeah, I understand that.
You're saying 3
As
feet
they
above
are.
what
Hold
it's
on,
existing now?
Sharon, let me
I don't know what his 3 feet is.
Let me get clear.
Mean high
Let me
water.
get clear.
It's a set standard.
Are you suggesting we do that as these bulkheads are replaced, or are you suggesting
Yes,
we do
as
that
replacement.
under normal replacement procedure? These bulkheads are to be raised.
Adhere to the standard.
Okay, I
Raised
understand.
or lowered.
I understand. Okay,
They
I
go to
understand.
3
Mean
feet.
high water, Sharon, to answer your question, if you walk down here to any place that has a bulkhead, you're going to see a black line.
Right.
That's the mean height of water line for any practical purpose.
It's not the high, it's not
It's,
the low.
okay, so you're not saying taking the existing bulkhead and going 3 feet above that.
No,
It
not
could be
necessarily.
3 inches. It could be 6 inches.
Right.
It could be lower.
It could be lower.
Actually, Eddie Wells could walk out in this parking lot right now and set his equipment up and tell you what this elevation right here is to mean high water.
Okay.
It would be a standard set throughout
Well, see, when I heard this 3 feet, my vision was to take the existing bulkhead and go 3 feet
No,
higher.
no.
I'm thinking, that is a dike.
No.
You know,
high
that's-
water is the
yeah.
same
We're saying
everywhere
from
around here.
what they refer to mean high water mark,
Is that water line? Okay.
it's that water line for all practical purposes that you can look on any of the bulkheads currently. And I'm not saying to do it tomorrow or within even the next 5 years. I'm saying the normal replacement cycle, set the standard, so when they come in and do it, everything should be standard.
Right.
If
I'm
you-
not saying that the MAC
If you
is
have
going
a
to be it.
friend that's an engineer, he can stand in your yard and find you an elevation mark.
I
Somewhere
understand
under
about
a
that.
tree,
I just want, I wasn't
somewhere
clear,
there's a-
Frank. I just
Yeah,
didn't
it's
understand.
off the
Orange
water.
mark.
I mean,
Okay.
Can I just add to what Frank is saying? Can I comment, or do I need to wait? It's along the same lines.
Slow it up, just 1 second. Let me just finish
You're out of
the
order.
table
Slow it down.
here is, and then we'll come to you first, okay? Anybody, Frank, first of all, you finished with your report.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay.
Unless anyone has any more questions.
No,
Well, that's, anybody around the table?
I'll sit aside if somebody has a
Bill
question to me. I'll
does.
sit
Bill.
over here.
Yeah, and just to add on to Frank, the problems occur with when you're setting those 3 feet. You may have people that are going to be, because we backfill, and all that. So you're talking, we may have to raise bulkhead fees and all that kind of stuff. It's going to be a lot more money to do some people, but you're going to have a grading problem down to their house if their house isn't high enough. So that, this isn't, and these have all been discussed. That each time. You know, it's not just a thing of saying, let's raise them 3 feet above the mean height. We have so many different situations in Ocean
Well,
Pines.
you could
it's going to be.
have, if you will, if you have a dock in place, you could set up, instead of backfilling, you could do steps, up one side, down the other. I mean, you already have, there's different ways to address the issue of having a high bulkhead, if you will, creating a massive wall for you. But I think the better part of valor for resale of property and for protection of the community as a whole for the long term is to set the standard. There's no...
One quick comment. The Environmental and Natural Asset Advisory Committee is also in support of this.
Yeah, they've been looking at it.
Do we have any idea of what height we are above being the...
It's all over the place.
There's no standard.
Slobodan.
Thank you. Slobodan Trendic, 20 Drawbridge Road. Just to add to what Frank is saying, and I apologize for my sunglasses, I have a little problem with the eye. It really comes down to looking at a much bigger picture than just the bulkhead issue. I was at the meeting that Frank was referring to. It was very educational and informative. But why this is so important and why you need to take a broader look is as you start to think about replacing the bridges and all the other things. You've got to start looking at the elevation issues. So you're going to put up a new bridge and the water level is going up maybe 2 feet or 1 foot in the next 10 or 20 years. It is accelerating, and the data is undisputable. So, the facts are there. But you start thinking about all these other infrastructure issues that I understand are on the table to be tackled. You got a clearance under the bridge. Just putting a new bridge, and all of a sudden you have a 6 feet clearance instead of 8, is an issue. The other thing you got to start thinking about is your dredging plans. If the depth is really, if the sea level is going up and you have, variations in the water table, it really affects, and it brings up the question of how do you do the dredging? Maybe this year is going to be the same, but maybe 5 or 10 years from now it's going to be very different. So all these things, I think, come into play, but coming up with a standard that also helps the owners of those waterfront properties that are affected in a near term or in the long term, it really helps us to plan for what do we do. And I happen to be owning a property that has maybe only a foot over sea level. And so, those things become an issue. I just put a new boat lift. If I had known that and I replaced the dock, I probably would have factored those things in. So I think it's really a valid point, and it begs for a much bigger strategy and planning in place that's going to take us into the next couple of decades. That's all I wanted to say.
Frank, you want to add something?
One other point there, which I didn't point out. I know that we don't control Turns Landing and a couple other places within the community. So I would, by setting the standard, and probably wouldn't hurt to inform their communities, if you approve the standard in the full board meeting, that they should adhere to a similar type of standard. But someplace along the line, they're going to have to merge with one of our bulkheads.
Good point. Excellent.
Actually, I think the turns right now is much higher.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think they are. Joe?
They're probably at 3 feet above.
Slobodan, if you just put a ramp in, I don't think you're going to need to worry about the tide coming up too high for your boat in your lifetime. Okay, I'd relax a little. I'd relax a little bit.
Really good.
Nobody knows what's going to happen in 100 years. If we're going to start setting policy of what's going to happen in 100, how do we know that another ice age won't start in 50 years? No, we don't know. And we're going to start spending money and setting policy on what might happen. I'll tell you what, if you believe everything that's being said about global warming, and you read The Independent, which is they're scaremongers of the first order on global warming, because if you believe everything that's written, we're going to get a 10-foot sea rise increase around here, and we might as well just sell out now and get the heck out. So I don't know, why do we want to go down this path? Then we end up with bulkheads that are sticking up above the ground level, and if it rises, I think didn't you say you were figuring on a 1 foot rise or something like that?
The last 100 years
recommendation?
historically is a fact. It's raised 1 foot. Now, what I'm saying, the standard doesn't care. I'm not worried about 100 years from today. What we're saying with a standard like this, even if it raised to 0 feet, we have a lot of homeowners today, doors right behind me, which are facing a problem with storm surges and major storms. Now,
Ocean Pines Road was flooded.
right. So as we look at a standard,
What's raising a bulkhead going to do for that part, Bart?
Keep the water from going over to the
The
road.
bulkheads only hold water where
Okay,
they start and stop.
excuse me.
No, no.
I'm
Water
not
goes
gonna,
around bulkheads.
I'm not gonna have a debate here. To answer your question, Joe, we have advisory committees who bring advice to the board all the time.
I understand.
And that's what this
I
report
understand.
is.
But
and
you
he's
did
doing
make
his
the
job.
comment there was a 1 to 3 foot rise, but you're only suggesting we plan on a, whatever, 1 foot maybe.
no, I said I don't care what it is.
Well, the board can decide whatever they're going to do, and they will do whatever they're going to do. But
I'm surprised,
for this
Joe, you
board to
have
get
more
into
scientific knowledge
raising
than
bulkheads above ground level throughout Ocean Pines based on global warming,
I didn't
well,
base it on
we don't have a clue what's
I don't
going to
think so.
happen.
I don't think-
I didn't hear him say
No,
global
he didn't say
warming.
that. I have a question. If we increase the height of the bulkhead 3 feet, do we have to backfill?
That's a misstatement.
That's it.
We're not increasing the height of any given bulkhead 3 feet.
Hear me out. Hear me out. I understand that. I misspoke. As we replace these bulkheads and we increase the height by 3 feet.
Above mean high tide. you
Above
didn't
mean
listen.
high tide. It might already
Correct.
be 2.
So, do we have to backfill?
Not necessarily.
It depends.
On
what
what height
Case
it's
by
at
case.
now.
Okay, all right. Suppose it's this lady's situation where she is suffering from storm surge.
If you have a dock,
I'm not worried about a dock. I'm worried about a bulkhead.
well, you worry about the docks. You have to get to the docks.
You use a stair.
You
even
could put
if you-
stairs up and go
a
over.
step.
You could probably have, I would guess, worst case. I'm guessing. When I say this is a guess, I mean I haven't walked around the community.
That's okay.
I wouldn't be surprised that some properties today aren't much more than a foot or foot and a half
Above mean high tide?
above mean high tide.
Ours is only a foot.
I can name you
I don't
places.
know.
I'm
Back in my
guessing.
neighborhood, I'd have to check.
I'd have to go around the whole community when I say
Your
this.
name is not-
So
All right,
I'm using that as a worst case.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
So if I have a foot and a half, then you're going to raise the bulkhead 1.5 foot higher than it is today.
And it would require backfill.
And require backing. If you have
The reality
3
is,
feet, then nothing would
at
happen.
the end of the day, the operations of this replacement of bulkheads is part of the operations. There would have to be a plan put together that addresses whatever the level is that is decided for Ocean Pines as being a standard, and we would have to, whoever's sitting on the board is going to have to vote one way or another to that, and a plan has to be put together to implement it, and associated costs to go with that. Frank, thank you very much for your, due to the time, Sharon, I'm going to move past the liaison reports at this point and look for the motion to go into closed session.
I move that the Board of Directors adjourn to closed session for the purpose of consideration of the terms or conditions of a business transaction in the negotiation stage and discussion of matters pertaining to employees and personnel, specifically Sandpiper Energy contract and the personnel matter. As permitted by Maryland Homeowners Association Act 11D-1114, 6 and I.
There a
Personnel
second?
issue.
Seconded.
You said a personnel contract, didn't you?
No, personnel matter.
Oh, personnel matter, okay.
And I vote. All those in favor? Aye, opposed? Thank you very much, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.
You vote yes?
Yes, I voted yes.
It was
Can we take a
7.
2-minute break?
Yes. take a
Yes,
break.
all this talk about water and rising and all that.
Sharon, you gotta get out of the real estate business, because you won't be able to sell, nobody will want to buy a house down here. After all this stuff.
Do you need these?
I got a